Did you know how many passengers on Diamond Princess were given remdesivir?
Hey all, I'm back in the office and I'm just about to release another interview from Dubai conference with Joel Smalley. So we discuss some of the mortality data looking back to the crazy few last years. And also we talk about centralization and decentralization and what Joel's working on currently. I also found my t-shirt. Forgot about this one, so I'm donning it proudly. And enjoy this chat with Joel.
Hey Joel, great to see you again.
Long time.
In lovely Dubai at this fantastic conference, but we won't get into that. We might reminisce slightly and then get into what you're doing now. And one thing I noticed is, I can't quite recall back in 2020, we were chatting in April. We were obviously both onto the scamdemic, so they say. But you've got kind of all ripped and everything and lost weight. So maybe just touch on that, because a lot of people watching will be interested in how you did that.
Yeah, so obviously I messaged you before and told you I was going to be doing it, and I went ahead and do it. And there's no magic to it. Nutrition, exercise, supplements, that's it. And then dedication. You know, you've got to apply yourself. It's no point saying all of those things and then not doing it. Strangely, most of the systems, if you like, that you see say you can have a cheat day, but I found the new regimen for me was so appealing that I wasn't even doing the cheat days. So, and it's just, for me now, it's a way of life. I don't feel like it was a diet or a challenge. I actually enjoy the way I live my life now. I feel a lot better. I certainly look a lot better.
Yeah.
And that's easy to maintain.
Yeah, it's a lifestyle. And you know, the cheat days are dangerous, because once you begin to do it, you can make excuses in your mind subconsciously. Well, I can do one more this week because it's been so stressful. And before you know it, the whole thing's fallen apart. And I think one of the successes of carnivore is people get so fixed on quite an extreme lifestyle, and they sign up to it, and then they're never exposed to the temptations because they've just got this regimen and they're ideologically married to it. So it kind of works for them. But you know, that's super. And we won't talk about the C word, the COVID war. But you know, I think we talked in April or May, and we both were pretty convinced we knew what was going on. And isn't it fantastic? We can look back now and see we were correct, I think, on nearly every single vector of COVID. Or was there anything we were actually at all incorrect on?
No, we were actually also correct in the attempts to rewrite the history.
Yes.
Right? We said this is how it is, but when it comes to it, this isn't how it's going to be remembered. And so now we see all of the people that we tried to reach out to at the time with the evidence are now admitting to the evidence, but saying what we said they would say, well, we couldn't have known at the time. It's shocking. And even admitting that what they said was not experimental, lockdowns, various pharmaceutical and non-pharmaceutical interventions, they're now freely admitting were experiments and that we perhaps shouldn't do them again. Well, hello, that's exactly what we said at the time, and we were told that it was not experimental, it was the science.
The science. And of course, in a sense, God bless him, Professor Michael Levitt, I mean, the Diamond Princess, at a glance, to a data-centric person like you or me, you just look and you see 3,700 people, hyper spread, you know, Petri ship, and what, a few people in their 80s and late 80s died from 3,700, 2,600 crew of more reasonable age, and nothing happened and nothing to report. Boom, over, that was COVID, and that's exactly what happened.
One missing piece.
Yeah.
So remember when I was on with you that time, Jonathan Engler was on with us.
Oh.
Jonathan has just written a piece, a very short piece, on his Substack this week. Did you know how many passengers on Diamond Princess were given remdesivir?
Oh,
so
I didn't know that.
Even that, right? And of course, at the time as well, we overlooked the background expected mortality rate in the background. So when you actually take into consideration the expected mortality rate and potentially the impact of an experimental treatment like remdesivir, even the Diamond Princess may not have been all that it seemed as innocuous or acceptable as it may have seemed statistically to us at the time.
Yeah, so it was a worst case scenario with inappropriate interventions. And the reason it reflected maybe what actually happened was because in real life, of course, they put in the same bad, factors or interventions. So it kind of matched them. But I didn't know that. They actually kind of walked in and kicked the people while they were down, even on the Diamond Princess.
Locked them up and gave them
I gave them this junk.
Yeah.
Wow. So, okay, we're going to, I think you have to, well, you don't have to be too sensorial, even with the YouTube platform, on what we're going to talk about, because it's pretty much okay to talk about what you're currently working on and its implications.
Yeah, so as readers of my Substack will know, I told them I'm trying to wind down, and I have been winding down. I've been writing a lot less because I have to refocus on my work, and my work is in decentralization technology. And apropos what we've been discussing here this week, the problem we face, the globalist merger of corporate and state, fascism. If I want to describe it in a single word, it's centralization. And therefore, if I want to encapsulate the solution to that problem in a single word, it's decentralization. So we're still faced with what I would consider to be a headwind, that people still think that cryptocurrencies and DeFi and that kind of thing is synonymous with decentralization. Yes, it is decentralization in a certain aspect, but not to the detriment of decentralization technology and what that can do to help us resolve the problem of too much corporate and state control and interference in the ordinary lives and activities of the people.
Yeah, for sure. And your talk was fantastic yesterday, Joel, but you had the benefit of slides, though I might in post-production add in some here, but that was really useful for me, the discussion of what blockchain actually is about. I kind of had a familiarity, but you summarized it very nicely. Maybe we try for a minute or two to summarize that, and I can add slides later, your slides.
Yeah, so it was interesting as well, listening to you and a few of the other speakers articulating the problem that we're in. And one of those articulations was, it's a war of governance. And that's essentially what this technology is. It's a system of governance, but it's a system that allows people to self-govern without the intervention of government and the agents of the state, or even the puppet masters of the state. And so at a very high level, at a non-technical level, when you think of the technology as that I think allows you to think more progressively about how the technology can be applied without necessarily having to learn at a deeper level technologically what that technology is and how it works. But to your question, the distinction is, and this is how I explain it to people who have come to me for education on the subject. Think of it in simple terms as a lot of the activity in society relies on the recording of information in ledgers, what we might also call databases nowadays. And if those databases are owned and controlled by single entities or groups of entities that have a common interest which is against the interest of other parties, it's very easy for them, therefore, to control all society. Initially through communication channels, private communication, and then public communication, nowadays in the form of social media, in addition to the mainstream media, which was much easier for them to capture. But all of these control mechanisms are done through the same premise, which is centralized control. Conversely, if the data and access to the data was decentralized, i.e. hosted on ledgers or databases that were not controlled by single or groups of entities in consortia with each other, well, then you solve that problem. You can no longer censor dissenting voices because you control the content and the platform via which the content is distributed if you don't control the content or the platform by which the content is distributed. Interestingly, this morning, we saw, I saw it, I think it was yesterday, but of course we're ahead of time here, Dan Wootton's announcement of his re-emergence to the mainstream media world after how he was treated by GB News, which we also know or understand to be something of a witch hunt because of how much he challenged the narrative while he had that platform. And I think that's interesting in two respects. One, because it's not actually decentralized. But two, because, and we've seen this in the past as well with Alex Berenson and Tucker Carlson, that in actual fact, the people who are telling the independent truth, when they're deplatformed themselves, are actually regathering their following on the independent platforms. And I see this happening on the decentralized platforms as well. It doesn't lend itself immediately to video media, but certainly to written media and audio media. As you know, I've shown you some applications in that respect, that I think having these decentralized platforms with decentralized storage backend where the content lives is going to be absolutely essential. And then having those same pioneers at the front end delivering that message and that forever being accessible to people that want to hear it. That's how we win this war, if you think it's a war of the centralist versus the decentralist.
Yeah, for sure. And it is indeed. I mean, I don't like hyperbole, but I often refer to this as a war. And in a way, this is the war of many generations. This is our great war, even though it's not for us kinetic. Obviously, everything's at stake for the future of the children with the types of kind of nut jobs who are unfortunately running the world. So safety then, all of these decentralized, they can't be impacted by, let's just say, the bad guys. The content that's created is always there and accessible. Unless you get major internet censorship at the IP address level, you can't really have governments interrupting this. And all we need are the leaders to step up and produce the content for this platform. And people, even though people, you could say, oh my God, people are so stupid, or you can use the sheep term, and it's a little harsh because they were propagandized beyond belief. But in COVID, you looked around and I think we both felt, oh my God, is this hopeless? People are so compliant and just, but there's an awakening sense that your infrastructures you're referring to, we've got a growing number of awakening people, a growing number of politicians, like the head of the Conservative Party in Canada just came out and said, our party will not link with the WF, we will not do a centralized digital currency, we are not going to have a central digitized ID. Even if he doesn't mean it, he came out and said it. But that content can be taken, reproduced with some background by a good guy, and it can go in the system. Do you think we're on the way to winning?
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely. I think it's still early days, but we are. And in terms of that path, we can also consider what the end game looks like, however far out that is. And you mentioned political leaders, and I said we really need to look at this technology as a system of governance. So ultimately, government is in the crosshairs here as well, and savvy politician may do well to recognize that and start to embrace that, because as this becomes more popular in the quite literal sense, and they still think that they want to remain relevant in these communities, doing what they think they do best, which is politics, then certainly not to burn their bridges at this stage. Just to make this more concrete, I've been working with other groups looking at this technology to support initiatives in direct democracy, which of course is the bridge between what we have right now, elected democracy, which is just sham democracy, it means nothing, to direct democracy, if you want a more familiar way of understanding that, referenda, right? Like you've just had successfully in Ireland. So imagine now that's a big, an important event, and it went the right way, but you don't have these referenda for smaller issues, and that's typically because it's inefficient to organize, to get the infrastructure, inefficient in terms of cost and time and effort to do that. With decentralized technology, you can do that trivially. You could have a referendum every single day on every single issue without causing more than a couple of minutes burden on each individual member of society. So again, not necessarily having to jump wholeheartedly in and expecting where we might be in 5 or 50 years' time, just to support transitions from elected democracy to direct democracy. This kind of technology can usher that in sooner rather than later.
Yeah, now the existing regimes all over the world, from globalists down to even our own useful idiots in politics in our various countries, they will be scared by that at first. But if it can grow and kind of evolve, like you say, some may begin to support it, reckoning they can do a populist Trump type thing, get behind it, be the latest thing. And then the others then gets a bit scared if some rats are leaving the ship. And you could get a snowball effect. So this is so positive, but I know we got a kind of hard stop. So we'll roll to a close with whatever you'd like to say in the final comments here in lovely Dubai. We got to go ahead with the next events. But I'm feeling kind of positive, Joel. Thank you.
That's okay, thank you. I am too, but what I would say, perhaps as a call to action, is exactly that, right? We've had, over the last 4 years, I would say still a lot more talk and not so much walk. Right, so there's, I would say, an exception to that. Alan Miller and Together, right? He's walking. He's doing an enormous amount of, quite literally, boots on ground action. But there's a lot of these other communities who have done a lot of talking but haven't done much action. So either step up your game, and start putting your words into action, or start supporting these other initiatives that come forward. By using and to play to my fiddle, please start looking at the alternative. Look at the decentralized version of everything, whether it's a decentralized messenger or decentralized social media. Please start looking out for these. They already exist. More are being built, and without support through use, they're not going to replace the old version, and we're not going to win this war.
Fantastic words, Joel. And yeah, people need to realize that what you've discussed, I hate saying it's the only way forward, because there's usually always alternative things in any scenario. But to be honest, this one kind of is the only way to go. And everyone needs to put the shoulder to the wheel, get behind it, and not distract into all kinds of divided forces and dicking around with the devil knows what, as we say in Ireland. Thank you, Joel.
Pleasure as always. Thank you, Ivor.
That'll do it, folks. And just a big thank you, as always, to my Patreon and PayPal supporters and anyone else who can jump on board to support real journalism, real technical analysis in this world of misinformation from, of course, legacy media. And I'll be away at conferences in the next couple of months as well, in Florida and Switzerland. So I'm going to be getting all the best speakers, the best thinkers, and I'm going to keep providing them for you guys out there. Thank you.